The Plank, presented by Jeep, starts now.
And hello, everybody. Tom Korun along with John Sabol. Week 2 of The Plank, presented by Jeep. Week 1, well, it was a disaster for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but then again, they got the Rams coming in.
Well, and it doesn't get any easier with that defense, too, and we're going to get into all of that. But week 1's behind us. Let's focus in on week 2.
Right. We got Greg Auman from the Tampa Bay Times, the Buccaneer beat writer. He'll be joining us in just a moment. Let me set up the show for you, give you an idea of what we got coming up in this next hour. Former Buccaneer defensive end Jovan Hay will also provide his views from a player perspective, not only on this game coming up, but also on the Ray Rice situation and what it might have been like in that locker room. Austin Kim from ABC 17 in Missouri is going to join us. He's going to get us up to speed on what's going on in the Rams camp right now. And we're also going to get into Tapegate, as I like to call it. It's that tape. Was it sent to the NFL offices? Did Roger Goodell see that tape? We're going to get into that, and we want to get your opinions on that too, because it is probably the hottest topic of the year so far in sports. And Mike McGuire will have his fantasy picks for us, John, and keys to the game, and I'll have my 3 picks, which you can take to the bank or not.
Or not.
And you'll have your picks as well, too.
Yes, and I think we may differ on some of the picks, but judging by last week's picks, you did fairly well except for that Bucs game.
Yeah, the Bucs game. I went with the boys out of the gate, right. And what did they do? And what did they do?
They didn't do well.
They didn't do well. Before we get to Greg, real quick, you were at the Bucs today. Lovey was sort of, I don't know, he's a little chapped. Huh?
Yeah, it's the first time I've ever actually seen Lovie Smith a little upset and a little on edge, mainly because of a few things. Everyone keeps grilling Lovie Smith about the Bucs injuries and about the health status of offensive coordinator Jeff Tedford. We still do not know if he's going to be able to play call coming up here on Sunday. We'll know hopefully by tomorrow. He was out of the state today receiving medical treatment, seeing if he's going to get medically cleared. But what really got Lovie Smith upset today during practice or during the media session was there was a report, I believe it was through the USA Today, claiming that Doug Martin was out of the game, not because of a leg injury, but because of the Bucs being worried about the offensive line not protecting him to possibly get injured, which was completely false because he does have a knee injury, and that set Lovie Smith off, putting it to bed, saying that is not the case, and that wasn't the case. He has a knee injury. And good thing, Doug Martin did actually play and participate today in practice. Limited action, as well did Logan Mankins, still questionable going into the game this weekend. Austin Seferian-Jenkins did not practice today as well.
All right, let's bring in Greg Auman from the Tampa Bay Times, the Buccaneer beat writer, for week number 2 to talk about this Rams game coming up on Sunday. Greg, we appreciate you joining us again. What was your take on Lovie today?
Yeah, I think he was a little bristly, I guess, a little short. Lovie in general is going to be very, very sparing with his injury details. Doesn't want to give the opponent any edge. He doesn't have to. And right now, the NFL only requires that they identify which players are limited and which players don't practice. So he's just keeping it close to the vest, probably more so than past coaches have been. So we have to ask. He's just careful not to give too much information about the injuries, just to keep the opponents guessing as long as he can.
I know we're going to get into the offensive and defensive side of the football. I want to start out with the defense because Lovie has predicated his entire defense on the cover 2. And if they don't get pressure up front from that front 4, that cover 2 is going to blow up. I think Lovie's concerned about this, don't you?
No, absolutely. I don't think they had nearly the pressure they want to have in the first game there. Against the Rams, you have a quarterback who's going to be fairly inexperienced like they had in week 1. If they can get to him, you might be able to force him into making mistakes, getting the turnovers that they were unable to produce in the opener. But no, they've tried things. I think you'll see a few different ends in there, whether it's Daquan Bowers and Will Golston being healthy and able to get in there for the first time. They've signed 2 ends and cut 2 ends already this week. Scott Solomon and Stephen Means, who played last week, are gone. Larry English, who was with the team in the preseason, is back. They also signed a guy off waivers from the Bills named Jacquez Smith. So they're trying to change out some of the parts in the hopes of getting a spark and getting the pass rush they need to, like you said, to jumpstart this defense.
But Greg, I think a lot of the issue with the defense too last week against Carolina had to be because of the amount of time they were on the field. They were just gassed going into the locker room. Time of possession in the first half, 25 minutes for the Panthers to just 7 for the Bucs on the offensive side. So you can't put too much blame into the defense from last week.
No, absolutely. And again, part of that is their own fault for not being able to get off the field. I think Carolina had 5 third down conversions in the first half. But no, if if they can get the offense moving and especially sustaining drives, which they were not able to do at all until the fourth quarter in that first game, that'll help a lot. That'll give them, I mean, they've got some depth issues on defense, so they don't need to be on the field more than they have to. It kind of takes a bad situation and makes it worse when they have to deal with that. I think against the Rams they should have a better chance to establish the run and control the game a little better than they did, especially in the first half on Sunday.
Well, as we know, Mike Jenkins is he's done for a while. And my buddy Jonathan Banks will be lining up at one of the corner positions. I watched Jonathan last Sunday, and believe me, he made me basically walk out of the stadium because he couldn't cover anybody. And unfortunately, he got a couple of assignments with Greg Olson, who is a tough nut to crack out there. Your thoughts on this? And I guess the saving grace is that the Rams are going to their number 3 quarterback, and Banks can't hurt him too much.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Bucs have 2 solid. I mean, Werner obviously, graded as one of the best corners in the league this past weekend, so he's not a problem. Banks played more snaps than Mike Jenkins did last weekend, so I think he's used to being a starter. Started every game in his NFL career. The problem is they don't have any depth behind him. I mean, their next 2 corners right now would be 2 guys that weren't with the team 10 days ago. They have a rookie named Brandon Dixon. They have a guy named Creston Butler they just signed. So they have no depth at all. They need to make sure those 2 can not only stay healthy, but just stay in good enough condition to stay on the field for a big chunk of the snaps on Sunday. And that, that's a key to them keeping that pass game in check.
Greg, we don't know who's going to be starting under center for the Rams. All indications show that it could probably be Shaun Hill. Obviously, we all know what happened to Sam Bradford. If it's not going to be Shaun Hill, it could be Austin Davis, that undrafted free agent, and it could be Davis too. Do you think, doesn't matter who's going to be playing quarterback, do you think they try to test Jonathan Banks, try to expose him?
Well, I mean, of the two corners, he's probably the lesser of the 2, and that's more about Werner than it is about Banks. So yeah, I mean, they're not blessed with a lot of depth at receiver. They have some speed that makes them dangerous. But no, this is a passing game they should be able to keep in check as long as they have some pressure. I mean, Shaun Hill is a lot like Josh McCown with even less experience in the last 2 years. And then Austin Davis, has been in the league 3 years, but had not taken a snap in the NFL until Sunday. And obviously, Sunday as a debut didn't go that well, and they lost to Minnesota by 28 points. So neither quarterback is going to come in with a lot that the Bucs are going to fear. But when you just lost to Derek Anderson the week before, I don't think you can really take anybody lightly.
Hey, Greg, we have a Twitter question coming in from our Twitter feed from B. Savio, and the question is, how long will it take for the Bucs to bench Josh McCown if he continues to keep playing poor? Now, before we get this, it doesn't matter what team you're playing for, it doesn't matter where you're at in the season. Whenever the starting quarterback plays bad, the most popular player on the team is always a backup quarterback.
Yeah, but Greg, I think you have to say, though, that Lovey brought in Josh. He's not going to have a short leash with this guy.
Yeah, I think they did not like the turnovers last week. I mean, that's probably the single most important thing that Josh McCown can bring to the offense is being able to limit his mistakes and limit his turnovers. So you can't, I mean, not only did he have 2 bad interceptions last week, he also had a fumble that was recovered, fortunately for the Bucs, by one of his teammates. So I do not see them making a change at quarterback, even if there's a second game like this, where the offense struggles and McCown has turnovers. I think it would happen eventually, but I mean, they've made a big investment in Josh McCown. They're paying him $5 million. They're trusting him to be a leader on this team. So I think there'll be more patience from the coaching staff than there has been from the fans.
Hey, Greg, as we talked about last week, what I like to look at is the demeanor of the players. What I saw out of Josh McCown when he walked to the podium after that loss to Carolina, this was a guy who I thought was pretty shaken. How has he looked this week? How has his mannerisms been? Do you see confidence renewed, or do you still see a guy who's still searching?
No, I mean, I think you saw Josh McCown very accountable after the game in terms of putting the loss on himself, saying that, I mean, he understands he can't make mistakes like that. I think that the reason there was an excitement about him after last season is that he had 1 interception in 224 passes. And I think everyone knew he wasn't going to be able to repeat that. I just don't think they expected to see 2 interceptions in the first half of the season. So, no, I don't think his confidence is shaken at all. I think he recognizes this is a work in progress. I don't think he had the offensive coordinator they expected to have in the opener. I think they lost, probably their best offensive lineman early in the game. So there's a lot of mitigating factors to why this offense didn't work and why you can kind of put an asterisk on how bad it was, especially in the first half. They have to be better. They know they have to be a lot better than they were, not only in that game, but especially in the first half. When you think about having 2 first downs, and I think they will be. It's just a matter of whether they will be enough they can win a game on Sunday. It's very important for this offense to make some big steps forward because they're on the road for 3 weeks after this. So for the fans here in town, they're either going to leave with a win that puts things back, on the right page, or a loss that has them uncertain for a month before they see him again.
Right. The other thing too is Doug Martin. Whether he's hurt or whether he's not, he's going to play. But one thing I think maybe Lovie might have been disappointed with Doug is that wonder if there was a hole, he didn't find a way to get through it. And secondly, when he gets through it, does he have the ability to be able to break the blocks to gain more than 2 or 3 yards at a shot? To me, I think Bobby Rainey is a more exciting runner. I think he's a more effective runner. Do you expect that if there was a short leash and a reversal of players at that position, that Rainey might get in there a little bit quicker?
No, I do think you'll see more of Bobby Rainey this week. You have to remember, Bobby Rainey, had a fumble that basically cost them their chance to win the game at the end there.
He did.
He's not necessarily in good stead there either. But no, Doug Martin was not an effective runner last week. I don't know that he had a lot of holes to run through, but when you have 9 yards on 9 carries, there's a lot of room for improvement. I do think he'll be healthy enough to play, but I do think if he's not effective early on, they'll be more likely to go to Bobby Rainey early. Mike James is a guy that obviously has run well this past season. He's healthy. He did not have a single offensive touch last week. He's another option. If they're trying to get a spark, they've got 3 different guys they can turn to in that backfield during the game.
Greg, before we let you go, what do you think is going to happen on Sunday with the Bucs offensive line and just overall outlook on the game?
I do think it'll be improved. This is a difficult defense to go up against. The first 2 weeks have not been an easy introduction for this offensive line in terms of coming together. I do think you'll see Logan Mankins back out there. He was out there working with the first team today. He's a tough guy who has fought 2 injuries throughout his career. And I think even if he's Logan Mankins at 75%, I think they'd rather have that on the field than dealing with a backup that doesn't have a lot of experience. So the key thing is them establishing that running game. I think they showed at the end of the opener that they can throw the ball well and move the ball around. But if they want to dictate the game, if they want to control things, they need to run the ball. Looking at this past game, Minnesota didn't have a traditional running game so much as they had some big plays from Cordell Patterson. But no, I think the line will be much improved. Whether they can contain Robert Quinn and that pass rush remains to be seen. If they can just keep the Rams to, let's say, 3 sacks or less, that's going to be a good outing against a defense like that.
And then Josh McCown will come out of it healthy. Listen, Greg, thank you again for joining us, as you will every week here on The Plank. And always enjoy your insight and enjoy the game on Sunday.
All right, thanks again, guys.
Appreciate it. That's Greg Auman from the Tampa Bay Times, Buccaneer beat writer. We open up the phone lines right now at 813-367-0171. That's 813-367-0171. I think we have Matt from Oldsmar on the line. Matt, good evening. Welcome to The Plank.
Hey, Tom. Yeah, thanks a lot. I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about, I guess, what Greg was just talking about, and have some questions about the Bucs offensive line and some of the personnel decisions we made. I mean, if I remember correctly, before they got here, we had Penn, we had Zuta, we had Joseph, and now we have none of those guys. And I can understand Penn, maybe. I mean, it seemed like they said that he slowed down and they'd watched the tape, but I thought he looked pretty good last year. But Zuta, of all guys, would have been the least that I would have wanted to lose, especially since he played so many positions. So what was the thinking there? Did these guys not know that this was going to happen? Is this like a surprise to them, or do you think this is kind of part of the plan?
Well, I think, for one, they were banking on Carl Nix to come back 100% healthy, but clearly that didn't happen.
You know what? And the thing that really gripes me the most is Carl Nix knew he wasn't coming back.
Right.
And that's what I hear. He knew he was not coming back, so he screwed the Buccaneers there, and that's not guessing, that's fact. Secondly, Davin Joseph made a ton of money, and they were looking for somebody that they didn't need to spend all that money on, so they could put it in other places, which they have to a certain extent, and hope to do it again. Zuta, I might have kept him because he was pretty serviceable. He's certainly better than Cousins.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, my God.
Cousins was horrible with the Browns last
Right.
year, and you look at the inconsistencies on his side of the when he played with Cleveland, and I just don't understand why they would put all that stock into him and like you said, not Zuta. That's a good question.
Yeah, but the offensive line, they have got to produce this week. I don't care if Mo, Larry, and Curley are out there. They have got to produce. Appreciate the call. Thanks a lot.
All right, yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
Okay, once again, the lines, 813-367-0171. That's 813-367-0171. Coming up In segment number 2, Jovan Hay will join us, a former Buccaneer defensive lineman, as will Austin Kim from ABC 17 in Missouri. He'll get us up to speed on what's going on with those St. Louis Rams. Yes, and here's our contact info here to reach us here at the Plank. You can reach Tom and I on Twitter at our handles there, and also on Skype. And also, you're watching us live on abcactionnews.com, The Plank. And remember the phone number, 813-367-0171 here on The Plank. We'll be right back.